Hello and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program Race for Eeloo. So, after recovering that lunar mission, we have 500 science, guys. That's excellent. That's a tremendous boost for us. So let's see, what do we want to get here? We can get bigger heat shields, but I don't think we're going to be returning anything like that for a bit at least. We can get another cockpit. We can get our first RCS ports. We can get a better reaction wheel module. I think we'll go ahead and get that. We're going to go ahead and get the next science module, the press mat barometer, as well as the storage container and a very primitive ladder. Let's see. Don't really want to get docking ports yet because it's still a little bit early. Oh, I could even go for 2 of these in the next tier. Wow, okay. What we could do might be a fun exercise is just to put some satellites up there and have some solar panels up there to keep them up, keep them running. So that'll be a fun little project. We might work on that today instead of going to Minmus. We'll go to Minmus next time, or we might get them both done. I'm not sure. If I'm going to be putting up satellites, I'm going to go ahead and get propulsion systems, and we'll do other stuff later. That sounds like a good set for right now. So as soon as I have some probes designed, I will see you on the launch pad. All right, and here we are on the launch pad. I'm just going to call these the ComSat-1 because that's really all they are, and I don't personally feel like they're deserving of their own mission name unless somebody has a good name for me that they come up with. But at least for right now, they're going to be called ComSat-1. And they are extremely basic. They are very, very simple. They have communication satellites, solar panels, the smallest fuel tank in the game, the Oscar B, and the smallest engine in the game, the Flea, I believe is what it's called. They've got a battery, and they've got an SAS unit on them, and a nose cone. That's all they are. They only weigh slightly more than that probe that we sent to fly by the Mun a couple episodes ago. So I'm just going to put up 4 of these real quick, and just get them up there. Have them as satellites. Now they're not really going to serve any practical purpose in this game because I don't have any mods that make communications necessary. But it's just a nice little cosmetic thing to have some satellites up and about. And eventually I hope we can get a space station up there. That'll be very useful later on. Especially once we get the nuclear engines, the Nerva rockets, because once we have those, then we can just kind of shuttle around at least the Kerbal system with just those, and that'll be very useful. So, I think I'm just going to run 2 of these in a north-south orbit, and then 2 more in a equatorial orbit. Ooh, that didn't sound good. Thankfully it didn't hurt us. Let's see. Now we should be suborbital now. Generally anything above 900 meters per second is suborbital. And apparently we're running this one equatorial because I didn't quite make my adjustment turn early enough. So this one's going to be one of the equatorial satellites. Looks like we're at 500 kilometers up. That sounds like a good benchmark for a satellite. That sounds like a good idea. So basically, I mean, this is essentially all that this is going to be. You know, I've got the tiny engine, the tiniest engine. Yeah. Oh no, it's the ant. It's not the flea. The flea is from something else. Some of you might be able to tell by the voice that I am using. The flea. Anyway, let's see. Yeah, it's just a probe with a battery and a SAS unit, or I guess it's a reaction wheel unit, and a couple of communitrons, and that's all that this is. And a nose cone, because it would have looked weird if it was just flat on top. Anyway, there's going to be 4 more of these, so I'm going to go ahead and skip to those. Just working on fine-tuning the orbit for the second one. Perfect. I'm trying to get them all just over 500,000 meters. But this is looking good so far. Just a tiny bit more. Okay, now just pull this in ever so slightly. We're going to go to the other side. Push that out ever so slightly. And there we go, that's 3. I need to swing back over to periaps here after making that maneuver, and oh, awkward, out of power. I'm good at this, aren't I? Well, I mean, it's up there. I just need to be smarter. Sorry. Oh well. We'll fix that later. But on that note, I did want to point out something. So, you might have noticed at this point, that original satellite or probe that we tried to send to the Mun is no longer here. I noticed this too while I was putting up these satellites. It got ejected. It must have entered some sphere of influence, probably the Mun, and it got shot off into interplanetary space, so it is no longer in the Kerbal system. It's orbiting the star, but it's not in the system anymore. It's not in the Kerbal system anymore. So that makes going and retrieving it that much more difficult. But I think we're going to move on now to trying to land on Minmus and get that much more science. So I will see you guys at the next launch. Alright, and here we are again, back on the launch pad. Now we're up to the Artemis 8. Wow, we've made it to 8 in this program. Well, what we're going to do with this rocket is we're going to take this to Minmus, and then once we finish that, it's quite possible that we'll be done with the Artemis program, or at least for now. We might add a few more ships to the roster later, as far as ships that have greater utility, such as resource mining or Kerbal transport or something like that. But at least for exploration purposes, this is probably going to be the last rocket that falls under the Artemis program. We might have one more. This one might just end up being a flyby, but at least for the moment. Oh, okay. Oh boy. That's not good. That's really not good. Oh god. Ah! Okay. Well, we are firing straight towards the straight towards Kerbal. Okay, well, definitely going to detach those. Oh god, that looks sketchy. Wonder if there's any way we can stop ourselves from hitting the ground at this point. Okay. Had to abort. Not good. Okay, well, at least not Bill, Bob. Bill's dead. Sad face. At least Bob lived. Managed to keep him alive. Okay, well, there's some tweaking to do then. I'm gonna go revisit the rocket, and I'll see you on the launch pad. Alright, well, here we have the new and improved Artemis 8, except that the only real difference is that these are smaller than the other boosters, just because I feel like this center engine will have more control if it's not trying to counteract so much thrust. But yeah, so this is the Artemis 8. I guess we could call it A, except it won't be that. But anyway, yeah, thankfully Jebediah, still not getting the right name. No, at least Bob Kerman managed to survive the last trip, thankfully, thanks to these parachutes that deployed at just the right time. But yeah, here we go. Take 2. Alright, we're just working on getting our orbit straight. I currently have a cat in my lap who's trying to distract me. And biting me. Not very nice. But yeah, we're just working on getting our orbit straight with this this poodle engine here who's putting in work. Now, the reason this rocket is actually smaller than the one that went to the Mun is because it does not require nearly as much fuel to get to Minmus, and on top of that, we had an excess in fuel when we went to the Mun in the first place. So, not only do we have less as a base, but we need less as well. So, we're just working on that right now, getting the orbit straight, and as soon as we're in position, we will start boosting towards Minmus. Let's see here, just gotta come around the other side of the planet. Now, my strategy for this is only ever boost from the position of the ascending nodes, so that you don't have to actually correct your trajectory. In the with the inclination of Minmus, because Minmus is on an inclined orbit. So if you boost from here and boost outwards, you're going to be boosting towards the point where the inclination of Minmus meets the inclination of the orbit of your ship. So it's going to it will intersect anyway. It's just more economical to do it that way than try to match the inclination and deal with all that business. So we're now boosting off towards Minmus. I'm hoping I have enough fuel left in this stage to land as well, but it's quite possible that I won't. Ooh, there's close approach. Okay, so we're going to get an encounter, and our periaps is going to be about 850,000 meters above the surface, 850 kilometers. Okay, so that's pretty alright. Oh, so now we have a clear view of Minmus here. Just going to speed off towards our periaps. And then, now that we're here, if I boost retrograde from this point, what's going to happen is it's going to make our orbit very, very circular. And if I had tried to boost from where I had entered the sphere of influence, what would have happened was it would have made a highly elliptical orbit, and that's kind of annoying to deal with. So I have a very circular orbit here, or at least circular insofar as if I made the periaps and apoaps equal, it would be a circle. Even like this, it kind of looks circle-ish. But either way, we're going to boost just a tiny bit more and get our descent moving towards Minmus. Now you can already see our speed. Our speed is very low here, so it's going to take quite a while to actually reach Minmus from this point. I would assume several days. several Kerbal days at least. But let's see. Yeah, we started boosting from like 14 days, 2 hours or something like that, and we're now at 15 days, 4.5 hours. So it took about a Kerbal day and a half to get to Minmus from where our apoapse is, but that's okay because we have time acceleration. So, alright everybody, and we are now in post-production. So basically all that I'm doing here is speeding up the video while still giving you some audio just to kind of make the video go by a little bit faster so that you all still see everything that's happening while I just kind of ramble on in the background and it doesn't get too dull just to have you watch. This is honestly just so that you guys still know everything that's going on without becoming too bored at watching a very, very long video. Anyway, all that you're seeing me do here is just gather up all the science data from near Minmus now that we are in that region. And I should mention that I already collected all of the science data from high above Minmus, and that was off screen. But I'm now working my way down to the surface. Fairly soon I'm going to be working on getting all of that science cleaned up and ready for action. But I think what I'm about to do is I'm going to go ahead and plant a flag, so I will see you all in a couple of minutes. In honor of Artemis, goddess of the night, protect us in our voyage. And we are back here in post-production. So, I've just finished placing that beautiful little flag, and we are going to pull the same maneuver that we did when we were on the Mun, and I'm going to just use the last little bit of fuel that's in that engine to take off and land in another biome. Now, since the Minmus is so small, the gravity is very, very little, and it only takes a little bit of fuel to go somewhere else. So, that little bit of fuel, you can even see that little sliver of fuel that I still have left after taking off again and going nearly a quarter of the way around Minmus, but I will have to jettison that in order to land safely because there's just not enough to stop myself. But I am closing in on the flats and touchdown. So Bob Kerman is going to do an incredible amount of science here over the course of this entire mission. He's just hard at work there, floundering around haphazardly around the ship, trying to gather all of that science and not make a complete fool of himself as he smashes his head right into the side of the crew capsule and collapses on the Minmus terrain. But he is completing his mission with distinction, I must say. So he is now back in his pod, and what we're going to do now is run through all of the data. And if you saw just briefly how much data was going through by those numbers just flashing by. But I'm just getting an idea of the terrain around there at the moment so that I can take off and perform that same maneuver again and get myself into one more biome since it's so easy to move around on Minmus with just a tiny bit of fuel. That little engine and that little fuel tank are enough to get us around nearly everywhere. So I think we are on our way to the lowlands. I mean, I can only assume that Bob Kerman has a filing cabinet underneath that seat of his, because he's just got to store all of that data somewhere. There's just so much of it. But yeah, I think it's safe to say that he also likes to live his life on the edge, because what he's about to do, he is getting out as he is barreling towards the surface, him and his rocket. But he, being the stunt pilot that he is, apparently, he got back into the pod with just enough time to slow himself down. But he does manage to overcompensate a little bit in trying to land on the lowlands. But he is going to take that much more data, and we're going to get that much more science out of it. But and he's just going to shuffle some stuff around and have some fun on the surface. And he gets shot off nearly into space, but I'm going to send it back to past me to continue on. I wonder if this is what astronauts are going to have to deal with when they go to a place in real life like Phobos or Deimos, either of the moons of Mars, that are essentially just asteroids, or if we ever put people on a comet, they're just kind of bouncing around and can't really control themselves without rocket or without jetpacks. Okay, so I think we're gonna go ahead and call the video there. We've got a ridiculous amount of science, and I'll be sure to report on everything that I get in the next video. Alright everybody, that is going to do it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching and for tuning in with me today. Make sure to go check out the League of Legends Halloween special that I posted on Monday, and stay tuned for Civilization 5 Part 6 on Friday. I do have to make a couple small announcements. A couple weeks ago I mentioned that I was going to be doing a special video after this coming weekend. Expect to see that video in a couple weeks. Also, I do have a lot of schoolwork coming up in the next week to week and a half or so. So if I have to default on one upload next week, I really do apologize for that. I will try and make up for it by that next weekend. But just know that I might not make all 3 uploads Monday, Wednesday, and Friday next week. One might be like Monday and Wednesday and Saturday, or Monday and Friday and Saturday, or Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, or something like that. But I'm going to try my best to get all that done. I've got a lot on my plate right now, so if I miss one next week, I will make up for it on the weekend. I promise. So, thank you all for watching, and I hope you guys have a good day.